In a horrifying crime that shook public opinion, Dr. Isabella was murdered with 17 stab wounds in front of her children. This was not the result of a sudden burst of anger, but the inevitable end of a long history of violence, control, and exploitation. Beginning a successful man with no personality. 2014, Dr. Philip Martin graduated with honors from a dental school in Germany. He was ambitious, successful, and came from a wealthy family that took pride in him. After graduation, he began working as an assistant professor at a private university while continuing his postgraduate studies, aiming for academic excellence. Behind this image of success, there was a dark reality. Despite appearing strong and independent to the world, Philip was entirely controlled by his family. Couldn't make a single decision without their approval, even regarding his own marriage. The beginning of the nightmare. In 2016, Philip met Isabella Rosenberg, a bright and ambitious young woman studying dentistry. She came from a well-respected and affluent family and was their only daughter. Philip was drawn to her and saw her as the perfect match. He informed his family of his intention to marry her, and they readily approved, knowing her family's status and wealth. The first meeting between the two families went well. Isabella's family was completely transparent, while Philip's family carefully crafted a perfect image without revealing much about themselves. However, things proceeded smoothly and the engagement was finalized. Shortly before the wedding, the first warning sign appeared. Philip sat down with Isabella's family and told them that he had spent all his savings on preparing their home and had no money left to cover the wedding expenses. Out of love for their daughter, Isabella's family paid for everything. At the time, no one suspected anything. But later, they realized it was just the beginning of continuous financial exploitation. Married life, the real nightmare begins. Just 1 week after the wedding, Isabella noticed something alarming. Philip's family controlled everything. He had no opinions of his own and blindly followed their decisions. She tried to adapt, but then she began to see a completely different side of her husband. He was extremely aggressive and violent, with anger issues far beyond the norm. Soon, that anger turned into physical abuse. That wasn't the only problem. Philip was also incredibly stingy, refusing to spend money even on their firstborn child. Despite being a successful doctor, he placed all financial responsibilities on Isabella and her family. The second child, and the ultimate betrayal. When Isabella gave birth to their second child, he was born with a medical condition that required intensive hospital care, which was expensive. And here came the ultimate shock. Philip refused to pay for his own son's medical treatment. Despite being a doctor with his own clinic, he insisted on discharging the baby before completing treatment, simply because he didn't want to spend the money. Result? The child was left with a permanent disability. Isabella couldn't believe that her husband, a doctor, could do this to his own child. She had no choice but to endure it. She didn't want her children to grow up without a father, so she sacrificed herself for their sake. Violence reaches a breaking point. Philip's violent outbursts became more frequent, making Isabella's life a daily nightmare. One night, he hit her so brutally that he split her lip open, causing a deep wound. The injury was so severe that he had to stitch it himself. She told her mother what happened. She was advised to leave him immediately. Isabella hesitated, thinking about the impact on her children. Instead of sharing her pain with others, she began writing a personal journal, documenting everything she endured, perhaps as a way to vent her emotions in secret. Night of the murder and the betrayal that sealed her fate. During winter festivities in 2021, Isabella took her children out for some shopping. When Philip came home and found the house empty, he grew furious and called her, demanding to know why she had left without his permission. While waiting for her return, he noticed her journal left on the table. Out of curiosity, he opened it and began reading. Everything was there: his abuse, his stinginess, his family's interference, and her misery in the marriage. Couldn't handle the truth. When Isabella returned home, she found him waiting with rage in his eyes. Held up the journal and screamed, "How dare you write these things about me?" She tried to explain, but for the first time she lost control. She yelled at him, confronted him, and exposed everything she had been holding back for years. And in that moment, his anger turned into a murderous frenzy. Terrified, Isabella called her mother in tears, saying, "I'm scared of Philip. His anger tonight is beyond normal." Mother tried to calm her down. "He's your husband, don't worry. Everything will be fine." Nothing would be fine that night. After she ended the call, Philip felt like he had lost control over his wife. He stormed into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and returned to the room. At At 2:30 a.m., he stabbed her in front of their children. Once, twice, 5 times, 10 times, until he reached 17 stab wounds. Blood was everywhere. The children screamed in terror. Philip's family did nothing. They had grown used to hearing their arguments. Escape and the unraveling of the crime. After ensuring she was dead, Philip fled the house. But it wasn't until hours later that his family finally checked on Isabella, only to find her lifeless in a pool of blood. Instead of calling for help immediately, they began cleaning up the crime scene first. Only after 2 hours did they decide to take her to the hospital, where doctors confirmed she had been dead for some time. The moment medical staff saw the stab wounds, they immediately contacted the police. The tragic news was then delivered to Isabella's family. Her husband, the doctor, had brutally murdered her in front of their children. Arrest and trial. Philip fled to another city, renting an apartment to hide. Within days, the police tracked him down and arrested him. 2021, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Final lesson. Isabella's gone, but her story remains a chilling warning. Not every marriage is as perfect as it seems. Not every successful man is a good person. Isabella rest in peace, and may her children find a better life away from this nightmare.